You're listening to the very first episode of the Emerging Leader podcast. My name is Ashley Linkwich, and I'm the host. So ultimately, this intro episode is just about what is the podcast, why am I starting it, what you can expect, and anything that I can think of in between. Honestly, I've tried to record this intro episode so many different times with different scripts, and it's just not working. So I'm just going to share what I think. The Emerging Leader podcast. Ultimately, first things first, why am I starting the Emerging Leader podcast? When I first moved to Australia over 6 years ago to start my career as a young professional and recent engineering graduate, I really struggled to find content that was relatable to what I felt like I was going through and that was quite concise as well. So obviously there were great leadership books and different things on imposter syndrome and being a young professional, but none of it really talked about the full package and the whole journey that I was experiencing at that time, especially as an immigrant to a new country with no job, no friends, nothing, and navigating that in my early 20s at 22 years old when I moved here. And now even as a 28-year-old, trying to navigate very different things, but finding that relatable content that can help me with that. So that's a bit of a ramble to say that I'm creating the podcast that I wish I had when I first started and first came to Australia. And even if you're in university, I think a lot of this content will hopefully be very relatable to you. I feel like this message is especially important at the moment with social media because it feels like everyone is just trying to convince you to quit your job or live in a van or become a digital marketer or a nomad or whatever, which all of that is amazing. And I think a ton of people do that really well, but also there's a lot to love in a traditional career journey or running your own business or buying a business or all of these different things. And hopefully this podcast is really relatable to you. Plus, good leadership will always be required. And whether that's in your own business or someone else's business or just in your everyday life, we clearly need strong leadership in this world and in everything that we do. So I hope that this podcast can be a bit relatable in terms of your own leadership journey. And you can hear about my personal struggles or other people that I bring on and their struggles and hurdles that they've overcome in order to hopefully accelerate your progress as well. Ultimately, what I think you can expect from the podcast is at least weekly episodes, possibly some shorter insights into things that I'm just learning on a weekly basis that I think are really applicable. Some of the episodes will just be with myself, and some of them will include other guests as well that I've met or people that are really amazing in their own profession and their own leadership journey as well. I would also love to hear from you about what you would like to hear on the podcast, whether that's specific guests or specific topics. I would love to hear from you, and you can reach out to me on social media or on my email as well that will be listed in the show notes for the podcast. Honestly, I'm just really glad that you're here. Thank you so much for tuning into this intro episode of the podcast. I'm just glad that I'm finally doing this and putting it out here. It is very nerve-wracking because I've had a very imperfect leadership journey, and also my journey is far from perfect as it is. I'm constantly making mistakes, but hopefully I can share those with you guys and help you avoid some of the same mistakes that I'm making. So please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to all of your podcasts, or whether you're watching this in video form as well. Hello, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks so much. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that are listening to the podcast.